The following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Event secure. Ending of time. The following takes place between.
Good morning, folks. Sorry about that. I kind of screwed up the intro there. It's kind of, hey, we've had some technical difficulties this morning. Only fitting that I would screw up our intro, even though I've done this countless number of times. John, good morning. How are we doing today?
Doing okay. Doing okay as
Good,
we head
good.
towards New Year's. And if you like college football, there'll be plenty of it for the next week. Unless every game gets canceled because of COVID. But yeah, doing okay.
Well, hey, we'll just have to play it by ear, see what happens, and hope for the best. I mean, obviously, we'd all like to be able to see these games, but of course, the health and safety of the players are
hmm
first and foremost. And despite what Dave Portnoy says, people do die from this. So
Yeah.
yes, it is something to still be taken seriously. I know it's exhausting. I know it's people are mentally drained from all of it, but you just gotta keep remembering that yes, this is an issue that's trying to be solved, and unfortunately, sometimes that means having to sacrifice entertaining events because, well, guess what? The players and the coaches and everyone involved are obviously their health is most important. So yeah. Anyways, we're going to be keeping an eye on that, watching that, making sure that comes. Hopefully comes everything goes off without a hitch, and we don't have any health issues or anything like that. But and certainly something to keep an eye on in the NFL. Although I think at this point, John, barring some issue with the Super Bowl matchup, I don't think the NFL is going to do a thing if there's some sort of COVID outbreak with any particular team. I think they're just going to say, deal with it.
Yeah, I think we could have seen it last night, right? New Orleans is decimated by COVID. If they wanted to, they may have been able to move the game to Tuesday. And if you can get someone that tests negative, especially when it comes to a quarterback, but they decided to play last night, and that was just a god awful game. I mean, Ian Book, who somehow was drafted in the fourth round, looked like somebody who should have been an undrafted free agent. Miami locked him up.
It kills me, John. I need. There's not too many Ians out there, and I need these guys to start putting it together. You know what I mean? Like I need a. I'm trying to think of some of the famous sport athletes named Ian. Ian Kinsler he had a nice career. I know you're a baseball guy. Very nice career.
Really good career.
Ian LaPerriere, he played for many years in the NHL for multiple teams.
It was a golfer, Ian.
Well, that makes sense. Scottish, probably.
Yeah,
right?
that was a golfer, Ian something. There's Ian Eagle, and I know you're really quick back because he calls himself Ian. But here's the reason I'm going to defend him. And by the way, very, very nice man. I know a few people that know him and speak highly of him. I think he does a good job. But you can't be Ian Eagle, right? Ian Eagle sounds better than Ian Eagle. That's my only thing there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to say, well, okay. So my all-time favorite fictional Ian, of course, is Dr. Ian Malcolm, Jurassic Park. My first that movie came out in '93, so you got to figure that was the first time I had ever heard my name outside of essentially my little bubble because the name's not really that common. Coincidentally enough, though, at one point in my life at Wings in Amherst, I worked with three other Ians. Like, how crazy is that? That was absurd and very confusing. Yeah, but
like John or Mike or Mark or whatever.
You would think, yeah, but fortunately, I was the oldest. I was there longest, so I was Ian. Everyone else was either Ian 2 or Ian O or whatever their last initial was or whatnot. So it kind of worked out pretty well for me. Um, but I was going to say another Ian, and actually this is slightly different spelling of the first name, pronounced exactly the same, but almost exactly my entire name because his name is Ian Glenn, Glenn Dunn. And for those who don't know the name, he played Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones. So definitely, I always have a soft spot for him because, like I said, we almost have the same exact.
Yeah, you've got a cool name for initials too, IG.
Nice. It works out. It works out pretty well. 3 letters, 2 syllables. My first name. It's kind of nice. Plus, like I said, I mean, it's 3 letters. Well, it's easy. It's nice. It's nice and convenient. My signature is just basically a scribble, but it actually does
Hmm.
look relatively, excuse me, relatively legit. Let's put it that way. So, yeah. So, anyways, now that we're obviously off track talking about famous Ian.
Famous actors:
Yeah.
Ian McShane, Ian
Ah,
McKellen,
yeah. Ian McKellen. I like. Yeah. There you
I-
go.
Ian
Sir.
Holm, Holm,
Ian. Sir.
Sir.
Ian
We're gonna start
McKellen.
calling you Sir Ian Glendon. I think
Yes.
that's what we're gonna
Well,
go
I
with.
mean, I have been knighted, John. I mean, let's be
Yes.
real here. I feel like I'm missing another pretty big one. Drawing a blank
Those
here.
are the ones that come to mind as far as actors.
Yeah, well, I should have brought up Sir Ian McKellen quite
Ian
early.
Holm is a great actor
Yep.
too. That is not quite as popular as Ian McKellen, and Ian McShane's outstanding too. Ian Poulter, that's the golfer.
Ah, there you go.
That's what
Okay, yeah.
I'm thinking of. Yeah, Ian Poulter. So yeah, there's Ian Woosden, also a golfer. Yeah, so there's some out there. Not
Yeah.
quite as many as John, although no one's naming their kids John anymore. That's an old name.
Well, here's the thing, John. I mean, maybe this is why we think so similarly. Um,
I
John
can't
or
read.
Ian is actually
Actually, the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a Scottish twist
Yep.
to the name John. So again, there's some there's a connection there, John, and
Take, take my Italian derivative, right? So it's Giovanni. So for the day, you can be Giovanni Glendon,
yeah,
which is double G, and I'll be Ian Sapichetti, and we'd really screw people up. Be
hey,
like,
you might screw each other up because I'm already
that's true
confused.
too. Yeah, yeah,
I'll just start using my hands more to talk, and then
that's
do
fine.
that.
We'll
I'll
accept
be
you.
very animated.
You'll be Northern Italian because you're fairer skin, lighter hair.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I haven't really seen the sun much recently, so I'm very, very getting back to my Scottish and Irish for
Hmm.
sure. But anyways, last night Miami obviously beat the Saints because, as we know, unless the Saints are playing Buccaneers or the Packers, apparently they're just not a good team. It was an ugly game last night, but the Dolphins, John, and I know I know people have brought up, oh, they played all these rookies and backup quarterbacks. I don't care. They've won 7 in a row after being 1-7. And look, I had admittedly kind of just laughed it off early on because it's like, okay, this is the Dolphins. This is kind of what they do. They get they get themselves into a hole and then kind of play a little bit looser because, well, generally when you're 1-7, you're not planning on going to the playoffs, and you can kind of play a little bit without a lot of pressure. Well, as it turns out, they end up winning 7 in a row, and now
Hmm.
they are very much in the race. In fact, they're the number 7 seed right now in the AFC playoff race with a very good opportunity to stay in that position, especially with what's turning out to be a very important season finale game against the Patriots in Week 8. So, very impressive for the Dolphins. I'm not sure if I'm buying the Flores Coach of the Year hype because again,
No.
like it seems like with a lot of these awards, at least the commentary on it now is it's all recency bias, and like yeah, it's impressive that they've won 7 in a row, but I'm sorry, I'm not gonna just ignore the fact that they lost 7 in a row, and that falls
Yeah, he
on
was
Coach.
coach when they were 1-7,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
like
So
it's impressive and no one's taking it away from him, but you can't give someone an award like that just because they decided that they're finally going to get it together. And that was kind of a slight, subtle, not shot, but it's going to inject my conversation and my agenda a little bit later, or as I continue to push the Brady over Rogers debate. I've got a lot of ammunition in it, John. I've really, last couple of days, I've just been really working myself up for this. I've been doing a lot of research, getting it down. I have a counterpoint for just about every. Actually, no, I do. I have a counterpoint for every pro Aaron Rodgers argument there is for MVP. I'm ready.
geez, if you put this much time in school, you would have been a lawyer.
Well, that's true.
You would
That's
be
true.
you'd be barrister Ian Glendon.
Assuming that the case is centered around things of this nature. No,
Tom
no,
Brady.
I I know what I know. You know what I mean? I feel confident in what I know, and I think if there were other things that I was certainly passionate about, I'd feel the same way. But I think again, I obviously have been pushing the Brady for MVP for a while now, and I think rightfully so. We go back like it's like one of those old wrestling battle royal matches where like one guy has to go through like five different opponents just to win the match, and that's what I kind of felt like this MVP race has been. It's been like one week it was Lamar Jackson, then it was Kyler Murray was the big name, and then Jonathan Taylor, then it was Aaron Rodgers, and back to Jonathan Taylor. Now it's somehow Aaron Rodgers by a landslide, but like I said, there's a lot of it's Aaron Rodgers by a landslide if all you care about is surface. And I say that not to take a knock on Aaron Rodgers, and this is the confusing part, John, because we have these conversations all the time. We both like both quarterbacks. We both agree that they're the two best quarterbacks in the league. But there's this obsessive need to twist and use half truths and assumptions when it comes to trying to make certainly Rogers' case for all time greatness. I think we both kind of have him in the same range when it comes to all time, so we're kind of lockstep and barrel when it comes to that. But um, for the most part, the in the moment commentary on the two quarterbacks is so outrageously hypocritical. Like, let's be real. I mean, if one thing was if what was happening to Aaron Rodgers right now was what Tom Brady was doing, there's not a chance in the world he'd be getting this type of support for MVP because people would look at it. Well, yeah, I mean, it's nice that Tom Brady has started to play well really late in the season, but Aaron Rodgers has been like this the entire year. So, you can't just credit a guy for recency. And again, that's not a knock on, in this case, Brady, because I switched the roles. But the reality of it is, it's not a knock on Rodgers. It's just a fact. So, one of the things that I saw get thrown out there, and this is very impressive, but one of the things that have been obviously really gotten Aaron Rodgers in the discussion, and that's his last 5 games, right, John? Was
Mhm.
16 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which again, it's phenomenal. 1,400 yards, very nice. A little more than it's like between 14 and 1,500 yards or whatever it is. I can't remember. I don't have the exact number in front of me. That's great. That's awesome. That's a very nice 5 game stretch. It essentially matches what Tom Brady did the first 5 games of the season, which he went 15-2. And we know, look, you want to fault him for the 2 interceptions, one of which being a drop in that game one, and then the Hail Mary, so be it. 15-2, 17 over 1,700 yards, actually 1,787 was his total in those 5 games. And on top of that, 3 of those 5 games were against top 10 defenses. And at one point, it was the top three defenses. You're talking about Buffalo. I'm sorry. You're talking about New England. You're talking about Dallas. You're talking about Los Angeles.
My only pushback on that is, were they the top 10 defenses when he played them? I mean, he played Dallas the first week of the season. So
Yeah, but
now
the
they're a top 10
personnel.
defense. Were they the first?
Look, I think it's tough to say, and look, that's a fair retort. I certainly am not going to sit there and say that's not fair, but at the same time, I think we saw Trayvon Diggs. He did what he's been doing all season. We saw playmaking ability from the Dallas defense. So I don't think it's necessarily a far fetched idea to say that they coming into the season they emerged very quickly as one of the better defenses in the league. But look at the end of the day, right now those three teams, I think we can agree that the Patriots certainly were playing like a top 10 defense at the time. That was a very surprising.
Really? I mean, well,
Well,
2 weeks after that, Davis Mills lit them up, and then Dak Prescott lit them up.
Yeah, but they
they
were still.
became a top 10
But
defense.
I'm saying, like in that time, they were still. I remember looking at the rankings because it was surprising that they were that high. They were considered a top 10 defense, but the Rams certainly talent was there, and certainly they won that game. Brady did throw for over 400 yards in that game, but you know the point being is like, okay, very impressive run by Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not saying otherwise. That's the thing people are push back. I'm not saying it was a bad run, but when you put so much into just what happened recently, because the very next 5 games for Tom Brady, he goes 14-6 and almost 1,500 yards. And okay, 6 interceptions. We can go through and maybe figure out which was actually his fault. There certainly ones that were and not whatnot. But the point being, you're talking about another excuse me, another 14 touchdown stretch and 1,500 yards in 5 games. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have anything close to that over the stretch of any other 5 games this season. The best he can muster is about 11 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. So, like, yes, what Aaron Rodgers has done these last 5 games has been wildly impressive and certainly should be praised. But if you're just looking at the surface, or you're not just looking at the surface, you'll say, "Oh, well, Tom Brady's essentially done this twice." Like one touchdown difference, I'm not making a big deal when there's a 150, 200 yard difference. You know what I'm saying? And then again, you add in the fact that those first 5 games came against 3 top 10 defenses, and Aaron Rodgers' stretch has just one. The others are middle of the pack to bottom third. Which, look, you play who you play. I'm not faulting him for that, but in the context of this debate, it's important to actually take in context and not just look at, again, touchdown to interception ratio. And that's my big issue with the race because, when you do actually go beyond the surface, everything really kind of supports Brady. He's had, yeah, their defense is essentially the same. They're actually graded the exact same number. Prior to this week, the Bucks had allowed more points, but after this weekend, they've allowed fewer points, like not much. So the defensive point per game thing, that's negligible. Okay, that's a wash. Um, 31 drops, man. They had 4 more added to his total this past week. 31 drops this. That's absurd. There's only one other player that has more. That's Trevor Lawrence. And I don't think any one of us thinks that Jacksonville's a good team. Um, Aaron Rodgers only has 12, and again, that shouldn't be a knock. But when it comes to how close this race is right now, it matters, and I think it matters fairly large when you consider again, not every drop was a touchdown, but you look at specifically what we saw last week. I've seen people criticize Brady for only throwing one touchdown this past week against Carolina, and I'm like, well, first of all, Carolina, I don't care about their record. Their pass defense and their defense again is a very strong unit. They had allowed passers to go over 200 yards, I think, 3 times all season heading into that game. But anyways, the throw to Gronk, I think we both agree was a perfect throw, right in Gronk's hands.
Yeah, but again, with the Carolina thing too is that they've won 2 games since September, and for the most part, teams just run on them.
Well,
I mean, the numbers can be,
their record.
even Tampa ran against them
No,
on
but
Sunday.
see that's the thing though. Their record is bad because they have bad quarterback. They'd be a good
Oh
team if
yeah,
they
no
had
question. Yeah.
consistent good quarterback play. So I don't think that should, because we also look at Carolina, we also see talent on that defense. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore, and there's other players on that defense. So I think the ranking is appropriate. Um, and again, we've seen them over the course of the season not give up. Their defense, not just their pass defense, has been ranked fairly strong throughout the entire season. So, but either way, it's people will sit there and say, "Oh, Brady only threw, excuse me, one touchdown against Carolina." Well, okay, I think anyone who watched the game knows that. Okay, Gronk, you gotta catch that. He's made, like you said yesterday, he's made some catches certainly for Brady, and this isn't an indictment on Gronk. It's just drops happen. That's one drop. Think about the impact of that one drop. Now think that okay, he has what? Now I have to do math in my head. 16, 17, 18 more right now than Aaron Rodgers throughout the course of the entire season. In a race this tight, that is a massive edge towards Brady, especially when you consider that Aaron Rodgers' um, I guess, biggest support for MVP comes in the touchdown to interception ratio. And again, we both agree that you can go back and probably pick out at least 4 and I think that's being conservative. At least 4 Brady interceptions that were clearly just muffs by the players where it hit their hand and deflected into the defensive players. So you know what I mean? Like it, as close
And
as
Rodgers
this.
has never had one of those.
No,
Never.
did I say he didn't? No,
No, but I'm just saying that it's especially two guys who played as long as they have, and we're talking about this year. But as much pressure is on them for those offenses and those teams, there's going to be there's going to be some bad plays in there by
well,
both guys.
sure, and look, that's why I said, that's why I bring up the turnover worthy thing because it kind of again puts in perspective how good they are at protecting the ball, but also gives
Mhm.
you a better idea about okay, Brady. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's kind of evened out where his number of turnover worthy plays have equaled essentially his number of turnovers this season. But Aaron Rodgers, based on his turnover worthy plays, has had some more luck. And again, when you're talking about a race this tight, this matters. Now, I also have to point out, a lot of people are thinking about this in the sense that Brady's trying to catch Rodgers, and I say, no, no, no. This is strengthening Brady's case because he's maintaining this. Like, again, people want to sit there and elevate Aaron Rodgers because of touchdown interception ratio, because of his last 5 games. Well, I just gave you two I believe, very reasonable and good arguments against that. And beyond that, what does Aaron Rodgers have? Yeah, the Packers are the 1 seed. Okay. Their offense, number 10, middle of the pack, yards per game, all that stuff, that matters. That matters, especially when you can point to,
Apparently not if they're the 1 seed
no, it does because
in the MVP voting. You're saying?
yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. No, yeah, no, this is all about, the MVP case because no team relies on their quarterback more. Maybe Josh Allen, but no one relies more on the arm of their quarterback more than Tampa Bay, and it's reflected in the pass attempts. Like I said, Brady's going to end up finishing. I think he's going to come up just a little bit short of the record for average pass attempts per game over the course of a 16-game season. I'm pretty sure Matt Stafford has that with like 44 and point whatever. In a season, they went 5-11. This is one of
Yeah,
those.
Brady's thrown 632 passes
Yeah.
so far this year, and Rodgers has thrown 475. Again, Rodgers did miss a game, and it was his fault. I'm holding him accountable for that. If he had been vaccinated, there's a good chance.
The general public doesn't seem to be, and that I think is unfortunately being overlooked in this whole thing.
Probably because it took place so long ago. It was over 2 months ago.
Exactly.
And people,
well, that's kind of my point.
But people don't have.
like,
not everyone is looking at these numbers for 6 hours a day. Thankfully,
don't worry. I'm going to put it out on paper. So
oh no, you're there.
The
only thing I can say is I recommend, I advise you, I pray for you. The golf course is open today because I think you need 18 holes of golf today.
I think that's tomorrow. I think that's tomorrow.
Okay,
tomorrow's
thank God. I think it's going to do us all.
Well, look, like I said,
and just think the golf ball is Aaron Rodgers or Aaron Katz or some other guy named Aaron, and just saying okay. Or me.
Look, no, I feel very much at peace, John. I feel very much comfortable in my argument and my case that I'm trying to make, and the one I'm going to continue to put forth for the general public because maybe this is a little bit cocky, but maybe someone's going to see it, and that's going to maybe change their mind because at the end of the day, it astonishes me that first of all that everyone's accepted that Aaron Rodgers, or at least seems to accept that he's somehow the front runner. And I'm just sitting here saying, like, I just don't understand it. It's not a reflection on me thinking that he's had a bad season. It doesn't add up. And
I think the gambling sites have them pretty even, right? I think Aaron just plus Rodgers at plus 140 and Brady at plus 170. So they're pretty much it's almost a dead heat at this point.
And as you know, isn't always necessarily reflective of what they think the end result is. It's kind of based on betting, and it kind of makes sense because of the momentum towards Aaron Rodgers. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to sway too much the opinion because, like, look, I mean, I mentioned Josh Allen before, and I was shocked. I was shocked to see where he was in terms of player rankings, in terms of his production and everything like that. And he's surprisingly very much in the mix, and you can argue has had a better statistical season than Aaron Rodgers. Now, again, the win differential, that's where I think it does matter because I think there's a significant difference between 12 and 9 wins. You know what I mean? And
Right.
Josh
And
Allen.
Buffalo is the highest ranked defense.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
Yeah.
so that's one of those things where I'm like, okay, certainly Josh Allen deserves some credit, but he's had more stinkers, I would say, than certainly the two of those guys. But and that's the thing too. Like when it comes to like team ranks, I don't unfortunately have the updated DVOA stuff because I don't think they updated it yet. Um, if Brady's 1, 2, or 3 in both individual and team stuff and just about everything. The things that he's not running, Bucks running, that's outside or just inside the top 10 now. Excuse me, the Packers are top 3. Their defensive strength of schedule, we've gone over that. We did that last week. Brady's is only going to strengthen based on again the fact that Carolina was a top 10 defense heading into into the game, and certainly Aaron Rodgers and sorry, the Browns aren't. I think they're middle of the pack right now. So that's going to only, separate them even more. And it was already pretty much a big disparity coming into the game. Bucks had the second hardest strength of schedule, specifically against pass defenses, but overall against defenses, the second hardest strength of schedule. They're a team that's played really good defenses, but okay offenses. Whereas the flip side is the Packers have played pretty good offenses and subpar defenses, and that's just how at this point, 15 weeks of the season, that's how it kind of shakes out. So, again, you don't think much about it, but that's an advantage to Brady. It just kind of says that he's had a excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Maybe I should take the day off. Uh, he's had a little bit more difficult of a stretch. We're not talking about like second ranked and third ranked. We're talking about 2 and 15. That's again a pretty significant difference. Let's see, pass block advantage. I get there's a slight advantage towards Brady. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like there isn't. Receivers grade, and this is something that again I think people gloss over because they just see the names on the Bucks roster and just assume everything's all hunky dory. Well, Bucks are the 16th ranked receiving group in the league, and it makes sense considering all the games missed, the number of drops, and kind of the issues that they've had across the board outside of some really strong performances here and there. The Packers are number 4. Again, it's not
better quarterback.
What's that?
Better quarterback.
No, it's not better.
Quarterback makes receivers.
No. God, I hate you sometimes.
That's the point.
I'm on a roll, and you just jab me in the side with a knife with a better quarterback. No, it's because of the drops. I mean, obviously the drops have a huge thing to do with that. I think we saw Devontae Adams drop a pass last week, and that might have been his only drop of the season, outside of maybe like week 1.
He's got 2.
So exactly. He has 2. Rob Gronkowski has back-to-back games where he's had at least 2. And early in the season, the running game still wasn't good in the back. Like Leonard Fournette struggled greatly early on. There were a couple interceptions that were direct causes of, balls bouncing off his hands. So there's reasons for it, and it's not just luck. So when I say look beyond the surface numbers, it'll be a pretty obvious case as to why Brady is leading right now. Now, again, you go in and say he has a dud against the Jets and Aaron Rodgers has a 4 or 5 touchdown game. Sure, that would be outside the norm of what he does. He's surpassed 4 touchdowns 3 times this season, twice against teams named the Lions and the Bears, and then what was it? Was it the Rams?
Minnesota.
No, Minnesota.
I think Minnesota.
Thank you. Yeah. Overtime loss. He threw the 4. The other thing, John, and this is the last thing I'm going to end on because, again, I've seen this as a knock against Brady because, everyone's focusing on the wrong details when it comes to him throwing 43 times a game. They think that's just, well, of course Brady's going to produce that. Well, no, I mean, we've talked about it before. Throwing 43 times a game is a recipe for disaster for any team in the history of the NFL, unless you have Tom Brady at quarterback. So the other thing is, and we've seen Shannon Sharp say this. Oh, he stat pads. No, he doesn't actually. As a matter of fact, he's been taken out of 5 games where he's played less than 94% of the snaps, which indicates there was at least a drive or two from the backup quarterback. Aaron
Mhm.
Rodgers, the only time he missed like snaps in the game that didn't involve kneeling came in week 1 when he got benched after playing poorly against the Saints. So if anyone's in there racking up the stats or staying in late blowouts, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. So again, that's not a knock on him.
Unfortunately, the Packers have had many blowouts. They've won 5 games this year by a total of 11 points. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
Two 3-point wins, two
but,
2-point wins, and a 1-point
this
win.
is kind of their thing, and this is a knock on both the offense and defense. They tend to just disappear for halves. Like we saw it the last
Oh,
2 weeks. Like they
believe me,
built
I
this
know. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, and again,
Oh no, their pattern is the
Packers.
same, Ian. They have the same pattern every week. They get down early because their offense is a little out of sorts early. Last year, they scored a touchdown. It felt like every first drive of the game. This year, it's usually 3 and out or maybe one first down and a punt and occasionally a field goal. They get down early. They play incredible in the second and third quarter, build a lead, and then in the fourth quarter, they can't put anybody away. That's like a pattern. What you saw against Cleveland on Christmas, on Baltimore, against Baltimore the week. That's kind of their pattern. It's frustrating. Like they're not far from being a 7-18. I'm not delusional. I look. I hope they win the Super Bowl and they get the second Super Bowl. But would I be shocked if they lose in the divisional round to Tampa, the Rams, the Dallas Cowboys? No, no. I mean, because they're 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 not all that. But they've found ways to win, which is good.
They could lose to the Vikings this weekend. I mean,
that would shock me. No, other than it's going to be 3 degrees at kickoff, and I kind of
is it
I
prime
favor
time?
Rodgers.
Is it prime time?
It's an 8:20 game.
Oh God, never mind. Never mind.
Don't even watch.
Never mind. Never mind.
Don't
no
even
chance.
watch.
Vikings don't have a
No,
chance.
that's over. Yeah. But no, I mean, look, if you watch that game on Christmas Day, if you flip the quarterbacks, Cleveland probably wins handily, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think.
Well, I mean,
they would have won. Well, first of all, one guy threw 4 interceptions and the other guy threw none.
Well,
that's a pretty wide disparity.
Yeah, I would say. I don't know. I think the Packers should have probably won pretty convincingly.
Oh, of course. Their offense went asleep in the third
and
quarter.
That's kind of the thing. It's like, and this is we've talked about it before. It's like there's 2 NFC Championship games where the Packers defense has gotten a total of 8 interceptions.
4 against Russell Wilson and 3 against Brady. 7.
Sorry,
and he still lost. Oh no, I hold that against him.
And
no,
that's
absolutely.
a big thing. I mean, look, Baker Mayfield throws 4 interceptions, and a couple of them were in. And this is the thing, and this is a reason why if you believe in advanced metrics, and I know people were pushing them the last couple of weeks for Aaron Rodgers, you understand why the advanced metrics favored Brady against Carolina versus Rodgers against Cleveland, and you're saying, oh my God, how is that possible? Aaron Rodgers threw 3 touchdowns, didn't throw an interception, blah 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 blah. Because of exactly kind of what you're laying out is like, yeah, they played good in the first half, but they really, again, for the second straight week, were really just not good in the second half. And we can go back to that Baltimore game, and I maybe we should.
Oh, that was frustrating.
I don't want to get on.
I don't want to wind you up about John Harbaugh going for 2, but that's their pattern. It's mind blowing. Like they can't finish games off. I'll put that at the feet of the quarterback. Yeah, I mean they're still winning. So 12-3 is 12.
And
12
again,
but I'd like to see them, which could be a positive, like they're 12-3 and they have room to improve, or they're 12-3 because they've won 5 games by 11 points. So are they going to be an early exit in the post? I don't. That kind of sums up this whole season, doesn't it, Ian? I mean, all of a sudden Dallas is the flavor of the month. Let's look at who Dallas has played in this 4-game winning streak. The quarterbacks they face, right? I mean, Tyler Heineke, outside of beating Tom Brady, is really not a good quarterback. New Orleans had whoever the hell out there when Dallas played him a couple weeks ago, and their other win came against the Giants. I mean, it's a lot of that has to do with who you're playing when you're playing.
Exactly, and like I said, I hate using stuff like that as negatives because again, you can nitpick for everyone, and but outside outside of say those 3 divisional games, the Packers offense is exactly where they're ranked. They're kind of middle of the pack, kind of fringe top 10, which makes sense because generally, and again, Aaron Rodgers is a 2 touchdown, 240, 250 guy. That's what he is for the most part. Like again, that's why when I point out like the touchdown totals, the last 5 weeks have been phenomenal. I mean, he's had a really nice run, but for the most part, he averages about 2 touchdowns and about 240 yards. He doesn't throw a lot of yards. He doesn't throw the ball a lot, and good thing because well, he throws the ball more than 40 yards or 40 times a game. He has a 5-19 record.
Yeah, him and every other quarterback
Yeah,
on
yeah,
named
again,
Tom Brady. That's the number that really baffles me. That's incredible. That's
yeah,
seriously an incredible number. The Packers remind me a little bit of the 2010 Patriots. Remember, they won a lot of close games.
yeah.
They won the
Mhm.
turnover battle. Rodgers this year is somewhat similar to Brady that
Almost
year.
identical numbers because Brady was
Yeah,
36-4 that year.
yeah. So Rodgers looks like he's headed right there, and Brady didn't throw for a ton of yards, enough.
I
And
think
they kind of just trudged through the schedule. They were 14-2, and I'm like, really? It didn't feel like it. And the same thing in 2011. I mean, back to back years. If you really want to talk about how great Tom Brady is, just look at 2010, 2011. Like you don't even have to, go past that. And then, oh, by the way, he's won 4 Super Bowls since that. Those 2 years, because those defenses weren't very good for the Patriots, they could create turnovers, and they always have good special teams. But those two teams went 27-5 combined over a 2-year period because of him.
yeah.
I mean, so and again, Rodgers in 2011, same thing with Green Bay had the 32nd ranked defense, and they went 15-1. The Patriots had the 31st ranked defense, they went 13-3. I mean, it's just when people want to bring up these other guys, let's see what these guys
Mhm.
that we're all putting up there as great quarterbacks that are still very young. Let's see them pull that stuff off. With really bad defenses and
Well, it's
kind of crazy games and have those types of records. It just doesn't happen.
well, it's like I saw people say it's like, oh, people wondering if Patrick Mahomes could play without Travis Kelsey. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm glad he had one game that he played well, even though Tyreek
Right.
Hill was still there. But like that doesn't, we're talking about a sustained over the course of the season because we know that
Right.
he's not going to have those guys every year. I mean, well, if Tom Brady had Randy Moss for the first 15 years of his career, I mean,
Yeah, that would have been scary.
good God, I mean, I think we can all assume that his production might have been a smidge higher than what it already is, which is
Just a little,
the
yeah. He'd probably be
greatest
about
of all
100,000
time.
yards at
Yeah,
this point.
exactly.
Yeah,
But going back to 2010, and that was obviously an MVP and a unanimous MVP for Brady. He finished exactly with 3,900 yards, 36
right,
touchdowns. But 36 touchdowns also led the NFL that year. So
right.
that's whereas obviously that's not going to happen this year. His passer rating was about 111, which is right where Aaron Rodgers is likely going to finish because
Yeah,
that's what he kind of that's what he does. And
that's what he is this year. I think he's
yeah,
right around that. So yeah,
and Brady is averaging he was averaging 243 that year
Mhm.
passing yards a game. So which is great. And again, it's funny because 2011 the very next year was 5,200 yards. It's just whatever needs to be done just kind of gets done. But
Right.
Brady did win an MVP, and that's kind of the season that Rodgers looks like he's going to have. He just obviously the things that would because people go like, well, if Brady won the MVP then, well, why should Rodgers do it now? Well, the thing being 14-2. That I think if I remember correctly, that was significantly better than his years. Like, hold on, I got to now have to look at this. To kind of,
Manning was still really good that year,
yeah,
but he had the Colts. The Colts were starting to slide. They'd gone to the Super Bowl
yeah,
in
they
'09.
finished ten
You
and
know,
six that year, and
yeah, and he was starting to falter a little bit. Then he missed 2011. Then came back and had I thought 3 really good years in Denver, including an
oh yeah.
MVP.
Well,
And
I'm
I
looking
mean,
at it now. The Falcons won 13 games in the NFC, but no other team won more than 11 in the
in the
NFC.
NFC, right?
The
Oh, Green Bay
Seahawks,
won the Super Bowl
yeah,
that year, 10-6.
yeah, the Seahawks won the division at 7-9 that year, and even in the AFC there was two 12-win teams, but no one else above. Um, there's two 12-win teams, and then the Jets at 11, but no one else was above 8 besides that. So that was a really down year that the Patriots just went against the grain and won 14. But just as just as football is, of course, they get knocked out in the first round, and that goes down as one of those
No, that's why
ugly
that's why I
seasons.
compare it so much. I mean, not just for Rogers Brady, but also and actually this year that doesn't appear to be like any great. I mean, Kansas City got 4 losses. There's only one 4-loss team in the AFC. There's four-loss teams in the NFC, and Arizona's not trending in the right direction. So you see what I'm saying? It's like I'm so old. I remember 1980. This just popped into my mind. 1980. All 5 teams in the AFC that made the playoffs were 11-5. So it was just a complete like who's going to get hot for 3 weeks here, and it ended up being the wild card Raiders. That's when the AFC won the Super Bowl. So you know you don't see anybody this year going 17-game schedule, 15-2 or anything like that.
Exactly. Like even like I'm looking at this now, and the Patriots scored 518 points that year. Like that.
Oh yeah,
That's
crazy.
yeah. That's sorry. That's another again thing favoring Brady in 2010 versus Rodgers now, because again, it's going to be remarkably almost identical to their numbers. When it's all
Yeah,
said and done for 2010 and 2011. But obviously there's huge differences. I think the Packers might finish with or a little bit over 400 points, which again range you about middle of the pack between 10 and 15. That's kind of where your offense is, and it makes sense. It makes sense. Um, so we've I said I was only going to say one more thing, and then we ended up talking for 20 more minutes. But it's okay. We are going to say goodbye now. We'll be back on Thursday, obviously, to get us ready for what normally is the last weekend in the NFL, but will be the ultimate. I love using that word, ultimate
that's a good
weekend.
word.
I love it. It's one of my favorites. I use it every chance I get. But we'll be talking about Week 17 and kind of giving our picks and predictions, and maybe you never know. Maybe I'll be fired up a little bit when we're to talk about the MVP, because I am John going to use my power of pressing buttons on a keyboard, the ability to publish, to put something out there to hopefully rein in the masses and gain some more support for hopefully what I'm hoping to find out later in life is a long lost relative already. So, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FBC Radio Live. I'm at IGLEM31. And of course, I'm John at Fancy Food. Have a good one.